Committee meeting to order for March 2nd at 7 o'clock. Can we please raise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I just want to briefly read our statement about the Douglas Public Schools. Offers a diverse learning experience to meet the economic, social, physical, and emotional needs of all the students. We provide a safe and supportive and challenged learning environment in which students may achieve academic success and personal growth. Decisions are made in the best interest of our students. And this evening we have a student representative here, Sophia Char. I'm sorry if I slur your last name. Can you please come forward and tell us why you're here?
Good evening. My name is Sophia Sherrier, and I'm a senior at the high school. I'm here to share with you some of the news and events of what's been happening these past few weeks. First off, the Douglas High School athletic teams have had an exciting past few weeks. Both the girls and boys varsity basketball teams, as well as the cheerleading team, held their senior night games to honor the senior athletes in some of their last home games of the season. Both the girls and boys varsity basketball teams will go on to compete in the state tournament. The 11-seed girls team will have a home game facing off against either Prospect Hill or Westport at 6:30 on Thursday. The theme is whiteout for the game. The boys team is the 21st seed, and they will be facing off against the 12th seeded team at Hull at 6:30 on Friday. The cheerleading team also had a successful competition last Friday, their first time competing in 2 years, showing a great effort and putting on a wonderful performance despite having to change their routine due to injuries. They qualified for regionals. In other athletic department news, Family IDs open for spring registration for JV and varsity baseball, JV and varsity softball, and track and field. The Spring Sports Information Night is Monday, March 14th at DHS on the auditorium at 6:30 p.m. Every student is required to attend with a parent or guardian. For news from the Guidance Department, Quarter 3 progress reports were issued today, and course selection for the 2022-2023 school year is underway. School counselors met with all the students during English classes to review the course selection process, and students and parents and guardians must approve courses in IPASS. The annual Junior Job Shadow Day will be taking place this Thursday, March 17th. Permission forms for this exciting event for career readiness were distributed to juniors, and additional copies are located in the counseling office. Furthermore, DHS will offer the SATs during the school day on Wednesday, April 13th. Students must register with Mrs. Brosnahan in the counseling office by Tuesday, March 8th. DHS also offers after-school tutoring and homework help on Tuesdays and Thursdays in the school library from 2 to 3. Students can drop in for help with their work, and no advance sign-up is required. Furthermore, Celebration Graduation is hosting a paint night on March 4th at the Sokol Hall to support the senior class. Doors open at 6 p.m. and the class begins at 6:30. Tickets are $40 and only available for purchase online. No tickets will be sold at the door because space is limited. In other exciting news in student life, the entire student population at DHS has been working rigorously hard the past few weeks towards the Winter Carnival class competition, which will be held on March 11th, with students preparing for various sports events like gator ball and volleyball, relay races, games like Family Feud and Quiz Bowl, window and wall decorating, and the infamous lip sync performances. The Spring Fling Dance, hosted by the DHS Student Council, will be held this Saturday from 6:30 to 9:30 in the cafeteria. Tickets can be purchased during lunches, $10 for individuals, $16 for couples. Don't forget that admission counts as points for Winter Carnival. Thank you for your time and attention. Have a nice evening.
Do you have any news to share about colleges with us?
Personally?
Personally?
Well, I've gotten into UMass Boston and Suffolk University so far.
Okay.
Most of my other colleges I won't be hearing back from until April 1st, but I actually interviewed with a Harvard alum over vacation.
Awesome.
Wow.
So that was pretty exciting.
Where else are you applying?
I applied to quite a few schools, I think 15. But my dream school is Harvard, and I'm also really interested in Boston College.
Awesome.
Wow,
To major in?
fantastic.
Political science.
Oh, wow.
Minor in environmental studies.
Wow, great.
Nice.
Thank
Hopefully
you.
when you come back from April break, you'll have some good news for us.
Yes, hopefully. That'll be a nice treat for my birthday.
Yeah, that would be.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Good job.
Next item is public comment and communication. Anyone have any comments? Moving on, we don't have any old business to discuss, but we're moving to the new business, and it's to the superintendent's report, please.
All right, good evening, everyone. Couple of things. I think my report's a little lengthy tonight. I want to start with an update. Obviously, we started Monday, February 28th, being mask-free or mask optional in our schools and on our buses. I've been in the schools a couple of times this week, and it's been great to see the kids and staff without their masks on. Being inside the classrooms, being in the hallways, is that first day of school energy, and it's not just because we came back from February break, but there's a buzz inside the halls and inside classrooms, so it's been really great to see. Met with principals today, and things seem to be going smooth, really limited issues or no issues, which is what we expect from our students. Anecdotally, about 10 to 15% of our kids in pre-K to 8 have been choosing to wear a mask. Mr. Romano says at the high school, probably closer to a quarter of the kids are still wearing a mask. About 20% of the staff has been wearing a mask from what I've seen from being around. So again, we made the decision to go mask optional. It's great that people are comfortable and doing that. As we've done throughout the pandemic, we're going to continue to monitor and follow the data, and if we have to adjust, we will. I also want to be clear that just because we're not wearing masks doesn't mean that COVID's gone away. It's still there. Over vacation, over the past few weeks, we all know people who've had it. Some people were in bed for 3-4 days. Some people were completely asymptomatic and felt fine. So we have to remember that COVID hasn't gone away, and we still have to be mindful of those safety precautions we have in place. Parents still need to be keeping kids at home if they're symptomatic, if they're not feeling great. There's test kits available in schools for parents to pick up. People can get vaccinated, so remember to keep those safety strategies and those mitigation strategies at mind. We're coming to a point now in the pandemic or endemic where we're learning to live with COVID and creating that new sense of normalcy. But I just want to keep on reminding people that even though we're mask-free or mask optional in school and on the buses, it hasn't gone away, and we still have to monitor and be mindful of our symptoms and staying home and keeping ourselves and everyone in school safe. So just want to end with that. Any questions about how the first few days of school back being mask optional has gone?
Not so much that, but like, what are we thinking about for future plans on like graduation, prom? How are we going to handle that with all schools?
So I know Mr. Romano and I talked about it a little bit today in terms of baccalaureate and what we were going to do. As we're getting ready to enter into the tournaments, we're starting our basketball tournaments. We're having the kids inside the gymnasium. The approach we're going for is we're going to continue to be mindful, and we're not going to remove all safety barriers and remove all variables to start. The elementary school and the cafeteria are still eating in desks in rows, and Mr. Bell and Mr. Pope and Mr. Collette asked me, can we go back to the tables? I said, let's wait a little bit before we remove that and see what happens. So I know I talked to Josh. We have a prom scheduled coming up, and again, if the venue is mask optional, we'll give kids the option whether or not to wear a mask or not wear a mask at it. We'll continue with that. Baccalaureate, we'll still have a conversation on. I don't know what other senior activities.
Well, so we have our class night, which, we've been doing it outside the last couple of years, and we've done it 2 years in a row. It's kind of tradition now, the motorcade. So I think we really want to continue the motorcade, and that kind of more relaxed atmosphere for class night has kind of been, I like it. So people continue that. We hadn't actually been talking about baccalaureate because we kind of assumed we'd still be in mass, and we didn't want to put 200 people in St. Denis. Now that things have eased up, I'll get my graduation committee together, and we'll talk about if we have time to get that going. Kind of coincidentally, Al Denoncourt actually asked me about it because it's really, if you've been to baccalaureate, it's a big kind of music showcase for our students. And so he asked if he should be planning for that or not. So I think we'll try to decide on Friday. We need to reach out to the pastors again too. Since we last did it, there's been some turnover among them. So we have to see who's still on from the last time around. So
We want to create that sense of normalcy
Correct.
back for kids.
And that's I think that's what the community wants, and I think that's what we all want. And so it's like, what do we do to make sure we were making those steps in place and that the community's hearing, we are concerned about it, we are looking at it. So.
Absolutely.
What's happening with, in terms of like number reporting at this point?
So, that's a good question. I've tracked the numbers at the state level and reported that out every Friday. And I'm going to continue to do that through the remainder of the year. Principals will share with me weekly COVID numbers as to what our positive cases are. The issue now with tracking the data at the state level is everyone's doing the home test kits. So the state numbers, where you're seeing 1.7% positivity rates or 2% positivity rates and case counts, that's only coming from people who are actually going to CVS and getting tested. The home kits, unless you're reporting them, aren't getting counted, so the data's skewed. So I'm going to continue reporting at the state level every Thursday, as I've been since the beginning of the year. Principals will share with me case counts for number of kids positive every week. But again, we have to be mindful that if you remember, prior to Christmas, you couldn't find a test kit. And now everyone has 8, 9, 10 in their home. So people are really doing the home test kits, which is skewing the numbers we're getting from the state level.
Do those numbers go out to families, the weekly positives?
Every week in my newsletter, there's a link that says COVID dashboard, and it has the 2-week case count, both at the state and Douglas, percent positivity at the state level in Douglas, the percent per 100,000, and then it has the number of positive cases in each of the schools per week.
Okay.
I'm just visualizing it.
Yeah.
And I try once every 4 to 6 weeks to update the vaccination rates based off of the state numbers. But when I started doing it in October and I tracked it, it's only going up 1 or 2 percentage points every 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah, so do you see the numbers of people with 1 dose moving over to the 2? Like, I haven't been seeing that, I think.
Yeah, it's
moving over to having 2 doses.
I see the 1 and I see the 2 dose, and they're both going up about 1 or 2 percentage points every 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay.
We're really not getting those big, going from 70% to 75% or 33% to 50%. It's going 32 to 35 to 38 to 40. Slow incremental jumps.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Next, really excited about a partnership that we started with Nichols College. Late fall, early winter, I reached out to some people over at Nichols to see how we can work together to provide some additional opportunities for our students here at the high school. We had a meeting about 6 weeks ago with them, and really excited about some of the stuff that we're going to be doing with them this year and in future years. So a couple things. One is juniors and seniors are going to have access to a criminal law and procedure class. They can go to Nichols College and take it. It meets Wednesday nights, starts the 16th. We have 1 student enrolled, and the cost is $350 for a 3-credit course at Nichols. So we have 1 student doing it, which is better than 0. We're also going to join with them at their Nichols College Leadership Academy. There are 2 other school districts locally who do it, Northbridge and Webster, and we're going to start with our 8th grade cohort and add a cohort every year. And what that looks like is about 4 or 5 times a year, kids will go and spend the day at Nichols College. There'll be leadership training that they do in the morning, and then in the afternoon, there'll be a typical college student. They'll have the opportunity to eat in the cafeteria, study in the library, visit classes, and job shadow. So they get a full day experience at Nichols College, and they'll actually become Nichols College students and get an ID and have access for free for their library, to their sporting events, to enter any programs. So it's a good little thing for our students, for that being part of a student. The next thing we're looking at with them is Nichols is going to be taking a look at our business and criminal justice courses. Josh is going to send over our course descriptions and our syllabus in each of those courses. And if approved, a student who completes a criminal justice or a business course here will get 3 credits at Nichols. So again, it doesn't transfer to any other university, but if you take 3 or 4 criminal justice courses, if you take 2 or 3 business courses and they're approved, you could go to Nichols College in September of your freshman year with 15 credits for free under your belt, which isn't a bad thing. They also host a couple times a year Deca events with other students. So right now, Bill's going to various places to try to do scrimmages. Now we can just go right over to Nichols campus, be on their campus, and work with other schools and create other partnerships, which is awesome for our kids. And then we're also looking to do and add Shadow a Student Athlete Day for our high school student athletes to be able to see what it is to be a Division III student athlete, maybe attend a practice, attend a meeting, go on campus, shadow a student. So these are all things Josh has been working on with our liaisons there. They're actively working with us to help write grants to pay for busing to get our kids there as well. They're looking at internal structures as to how they can help support that, and then we'll look at our own budget as to how to get our students over there. So it's pretty exciting and a good opportunity for students to have that partnership. Any questions?
Thank you, Josh.
I'll set it up, I just had the conversation towards the email, so it was good.
It's awesome. Next, Project Lead the Way. Our elementary school just received a grant for Project Lead the Way for $11,000 over 3 years. So pretty exciting that next year, we're going to be able to implement Project Lead the Way at our elementary, middle. We've already started here at the high school. Project Lead the Way has 3 different pathways. They have a pre-engineering, engineering pathway, they have a biomedical pathway, and they have a computer science pathway. So it's really ramping up those experiences for our students, and we're hoping to be able to keep some kids here as they start that pathway at the elementary and the middle and can continue at the high school level and continue on that pathway and hopefully stay in Dudley. So we're really excited for that opportunity going forward.
Do we know what that would look like for elementary?
We don't.
Okay.
John just received the grant, I think it was either right before, either school vacation, I think school vacation week or right before school vacation week. So we're in the process of working that. We met today to talk about, trying to figure out what staffing looks like, when they're going to offer it for kids. I know at the middle school, as part of the STEM, Christine DeCesare has a STEM class, and she's going to run a lot of the modulars through her STEM class. I know at the middle school, the modulars are 10-unit modulars, which roughly run about a month. So we're going to try to do 2 to 3 at the middle school. And then Josh has it here for year 1.
Full course.
Full course. We're going to do year 1, then we're going to build on year 2.
Does that mean that there might be like choice for elementary kids where they could spend some time during the day doing some of this stuff? Like,
I don't know if there'd be choice, so it would become one of, so right now, elementary school kids do library, they do art, they do
Yeah.
music, they do PE. We'd add a 5th
Okay.
special.
got you, okay.
In essence, we'd add another special to their wheel.
Okay. Are there other schools doing that with elementary? The Project Lead the Way?
There are, I know that in the Blackstone Valley, we're actually the only district that doesn't do Project Lead the Way, so I'm happy that we're able to offer that to our students. I don't know what schools locally are doing it with elementary, but I know high school, most high schools and middle schools are offering it,
Okay.
which is awesome. Any questions about Project Lead the Way? All right. Now the fun stuff. We'll transition to the FY23 Superintendent's preliminary proposed budget. I want to start off by thanking a lot of people. First off, to Courtney. This has been a very difficult budget year and budget cycle with a lot of unknowns and a lot of variables out there. So thank you to Courtney for putting this together, and there was a lot of work. Our admin team, principals, assistant principals, food service, tech director, all contributed heavily to this. So a big thank you to them. And again, this is a 30,000-foot view of our budget. The second slide is our mission statement, and I know we read it to start the school year off, but this is our value statement. This is what we believe in. This is what we strive to do, and our budget should represent what we strive to do. Do we have the money to do everything we want? Absolutely not. Is there any zip code in the Commonwealth that has the money to do everything they want? Absolutely not. We do the best we can with the resources we have to make sure that we offer those experiences that meet the academic, social, physical, and emotional needs of all of our kids. We want to do that in that safe, supportive, and challenging environment so our kids are academically successful and show that personal growth. So it's important to start with that. I've also talked a lot for the past 2 years about our blueprint for student success in our improvement priority areas. And again, a lot of what we've done is focused on this, making sure we have that academic excellence and focusing on it. Trying to build those community partnerships, which I'll touch on after this presentation. The social emotional well-being of all is so important. Making sure that kids are good local and global citizens, and promoting that growth mindset. Our goal when we created this budget is at minimum to provide a level service budget for the FY23 fiscal year. You'll hear words like level service, real needs, level funding. Level service means that we're trying to provide the same level of services in FY23 than we did in FY22. And I put at minimum because we're hoping maybe to go a little bit above what we were able to provide for our students this year. In order to provide for those educational needs, we took the following steps, and this is not an all-inclusive list, but just some highlights of things we did. We used the blueprint to prioritize as a guide what we valued. We met to review and discuss priorities as a leadership team. We did a thorough line item analysis to make sure we were maximizing our resources. Courtney did a great job looking at grants and revolving funds to see how we could offset the budget. We looked at our building schedules, how buildings were run in order to maximize efficiencies. We had a great collaborative process with our town administrator and our board of selectmen throughout this. I just want to highlight that as part of the process. And really the priority was placed on maintaining the current level of services to all of our students. So next is a walkthrough of our preliminary proposed budget as of 3/2/22. So we'll start with the top line. Our FY22 general fund budget appropriation net offsets, meaning what we got in FY22 from the town, was $14,727,000. Every year, the town has given us 1.5% above our previous year's appropriation. So our FY23 preliminary additional appropriation amount comes to $210,011. So if you take your FY22 general fund budget appropriation plus your 1.5 increase, you get an FY23 preliminary town appropriation of $14,210,738. Now, our FY23 preliminary proposed budget, meaning what do we need to run the Douglas Public Schools for the 22-23 school year? And again, could we use more? Absolutely. But what we need to run the schools is going to cost us $17,973,738. What Courtney did, looked at grants and looked at revolving funds to offset that. She was able to come up with $2,943,305 in offsets, which leaves right now at this point our FY23 preliminary general fund budget at $15,030,433, or the difference of $819,695. So that's what we still have to reduce to get to the $14.2 million that the town has appropriated to us. It's a big number, but we'll talk about how we're going to get there over the next 4 to 6 weeks. The next page, and again, I'm sure you've seen this in other presentations, just kind of highlights where our money's being spent. So Courtney and I struggled a little bit, and we put things into 6 buckets. We could have gone more, but we tried to synthesize it and put it in 6 buckets. 5 budgets. First one is salary and other compensation. That's the bulk of our budget. Next is contractual services, special education, tuitions, building maintenance, our contractual services. Next, we have utilities, lights, electricity, phone, cable. Supplies, which are paper, pencils, cleaning products, things we need. And then we call the next one other, because we couldn't think of anything more creative to call it. And that's kind of a catch-all where we have a professional development, we have dues, we have memberships, where we pay for Teach Point, we might pay for iPass, so that's other. So if you look at the first column, where it says FY23 operating budget, you see what we're spending in each of those 5 major buckets. If If you add that together, you come to your 17.9 million.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So can you tell me, like, where are we seeing the increases, that $3 million difference from FY '22 to FY '23? I'm just curious as to
Sure.
where are the changes coming?
So there's a couple things. So one, we went out for our oil bid. That went up $114,000 for oil from what we projected from last year to this year. Obviously, raises are an increase from one year to the next year. Our sped contracted services, which we have no control over, if we're sending kids to out-of-district placements, they raise their tuition, we have to pay it.
And even in in-district contractual
And then
services.
even
for
in-district
special ed.
contractual services. We always try to budget, because we don't know what's going to happen from one year to the next. We always try to budget. We don't know how many kids are going to move into the district that may need an out-of-district placement, so we try to buffer that. That's really where the bulk of the increases have been.
Okay, so we're not seeing anything like any post-COVID type of, like where we're getting back to normal operation kind of increases here?
We haven't.
Okay.
Oh,
What do you mean by that? Hold
yeah,
on.
what do you mean by that? Yeah.
Like food service or things like that, where maybe we had federal funds for it at one
Oh,
point.
food service isn't a part of this in any way, shape, or
They're
form.
100% self-funded.
Okay, or
Yeah.
like just any sort of grants that we might have gotten from COVID or anything like that.
So we still have, so fortunately, we still have ESSER 2, which expires this year. ESSER 3, we still have 2 years to spend that money. We have FY '23 and FY '24 to spend our ESSER 3 money. We just applied for an SOA grant for about $100,000, which we'll know in a couple of weeks if we get that. So we're hoping to be able to bring in some additional grant money to help offset this.
Yeah, so this is very preliminary, and a lot of those grants, in fact, all the ones that we got in the beginning were 100% for COVID.
Yeah.
And as Dr. Viera mentioned, only the last one has more flexibility. And we still haven't made that determination yet, because it's really kind of, we've been waiting to see on a number of different fronts, where things were going to land, and with regard to some other big budget items too, where that was going to land, before we made a final determination on the best utilization of that grant. Because we did have the flexibility of the time frame of '23 and into '24 as well, possibly. But we probably, I don't know how much we'll have for '24, but, so we still haven't made those determinations yet.
Thank you.
So that third column, you see where we're using our grants and our revolving funds. Obviously, you want to try to not to use your one-time influxes of money to pay salaries, so you see a lot of it's going towards contracted services, towards utilities. So the second to last column, FY '23 net general fund, that's at $15 million. I think the last column is pretty telling, and it shows people where the majority of our resources are going. Our salaries and compensation make up 85% of our budget.
By other compensation, we just mean hourly employees.
Co-curriculars, it's anything that's salary related in any way,
Stipends,
yes. 'Cause
co-curricular,
that
athletics.
is, it's other compensation,
But
it's in
anything
contracts.
contractual is that includes like
Anything
French
salary.
River second row. Second row contractual.
French River would probably, is in the, is in the
Oh,
second.
no, yeah, that would be in the second one, because that's not a salary, it's not a compensation, it's contract.
Okay.
Yes,
So the salaries are,
Yep, only for our own staff.
all of our
Yep, all
own
of our
staff
staff,
salaries,
yep.
but it includes, as Courtney said, coaches,
Stipends.
stipends, co-curricular stipends, longevity.
Yeah.
Substitutes.
Substitute,
yeah.
Yep, all substitutes, yes. Honorariums, yep,
Yep.
anything that's other compensation in any contract for our own employees.
So I know that this is still, there's a lot of unsettled parts and preliminary. I know that this is still like an estimate, but I have 2 questions. Maybe I have 3 questions. One, do we have a sense of what proportion of the use of grants and revolving funds is grants, and what proportion is revolving funds?
Oh, most of it's revolving funds, and most of it is school choice. The predominance is always school choice and circuit breaker. There's a very small amount, it's a little bit
probably just over, if I remember correctly, it was just over $100,000 for preschool revolving fund.
Yeah.
There's very little bit in middle school and high school athletic funds.
Yeah.
And then a very small amount now
Yeah.
in Title I grant, because it used to be 3 times more.
Right.
So now it's a very small amount. And then the 240 grant offsetting special ed tuitions.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then my
And I
second,
only incorporate the ones that are yearly, ongoing, grants that we receive every single year. I
Okay.
don't do the ones,
The
that, you know,
specialty
the one
ones.
time, right.
okay. And then my second question, since I've never been on the budget subcommittee, is has the school committee budget subcommittee been involved to this point? And if not, when and how do they become involved?
We're going to have a meeting on Friday, and now we have one
Or next week. I think next week.
Wednesday.
Yeah.
Wednesday.
Okay, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And then my last thought is just gut reaction as a person who's not on that committee and going line by line, is that I'm nervous that if I'm looking at the total preliminary proposed budget, that 16.4% of that is use of revolving funds, not for like the one-time shot, but then this is becoming that almost 18 million is going to become our baseline for the following year. In theory, I know that some expenditures will go out and the price of oil can change. It just seems, I know that we like took a bite out of some of our funds the last time around. I'm just a little,
Yeah, and I go over that with the budget subcommittee, and I also will go over it with the full committee. And this is very preliminary.
and
'cause
I
there's
know
some
that you're conservative,
big
Courtney.
things out there.
I know you are.
Well, prudently
Very.
conservative. Well,
I'm not worried yet.
well, I do, well, actually, you know, I am, and I always use the term prudently conservative,
Yeah.
but yet, you know, in just a full disclosure here, the last few years, we have, because we want to maintain the stability, we don't want to go backwards, so
Right.
I don't mind admitting that, you know, it's been a very, you know, very, very deep discussion and looking at the figures and,
Yeah.
you know, and my thing that I always say, and they can back me up, is as long as I know I can sleep at night,
Yeah.
I'm okay. So I did, you know, push it up a little bit more last year because
Yeah.
otherwise, you know, as long as I am still sleeping, and I know that we're maintaining things that we do need for our students, because that's what we're all here for.
Right.
You know, it's such a balance act, because, you know, as a former superintendent used to always say, it's the one thing I never forget, a child is only in first grade once, or fifth grade, or ninth grade, or their senior year.
Maybe
It's a
days.
one-shot deal every year. So, you know, it's a real tough thing, and that's why we have all of us talking and looking at it together,
Yeah.
because we need all of our heads, you know, coming from different perspectives, as school committee members, parents, the superintendent, myself, and all of the admin team, leadership team, because I don't want to unnecessarily hold on to so much.
Absolutely.
That it's not there for the students in that one-shot deal year that they have to be in that grade.
Yeah.
But yet, as long as I can sleep at night. So I'm never going to recommend something that I can't sleep at night.
I agree
so,
with you 100%.
yeah.
Obviously, like, it's
Yeah.
a delicate balance between
Sure is.
using the resources you have to the fullest and giving students
Mm-hmm.
everything you can, and making sure that you have sustainability. And
Right,
I trust
exactly,
you.
exactly. Oh, it's
I-
not just me, it really is a concern, and
Yeah.
and you guys have all been great, and I do need those other heads too, looking at it. I can't just bounce it off myself, because after a while, I can't even hear myself. So I do need to, bounce it off we have other eyes on it and thinking about it, because
Yeah.
it's those different perspectives that we each have that lend to that group decision, so,
Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome.
So again, that last column, you can see the percentages of the budget. So when people say, can't you cut supplies? Supplies,
Yeah.
I mean, once you start, if you
Not
could-
gonna cut it.
You could cut, like, we're $819,000 off. If we cut all of our supplies for next year, it's half of what we still need to cut. So even if you cut, 10% of your supplies, it's really not putting a massive dent in anything. So that's
And we
where.
do need supplies.
And we do need supplies.
Yeah.
So the next slide, we can spend some time on is, again, we talked about it early, we've been looking at this for a while now, but we are extremely cautiously optimistic that we can close the budget doing the following things. One, additional reductions through line item analysis. We're going to go back and look at those line items and say, where can we tweak, where can we cut, what can we do? Courtney's extremely prudently conservative.
I wouldn't say extremely, really, but it's just a lot of analysis. It's just a lot of analysis, but I wouldn't say I'm extremely
Prudently conservative.
Yeah.
I'm going to say you are,
I
but it's
used to
okay.
be. I used to be, but yeah.
With the possible use of revolving funds, and just for people to kind of understand revolving funds, we use our school choice, and we want to make sure we have a healthy school choice budget in case something happens.
Yes, especially
We don't
now.
know. Something could happen to the roof. Something could happen with snow. Something could happen to a boiler. We have, we have 4 months left in the school year. As we get closer to the end of the school year, and we shrink the amount of days that are available, Courtney becomes more and more comfortable sometimes.
A little bit.
A little bit.
Something big could happen on June 30th.
I know. But she becomes a little bit
A
more
little bit,
comfortable with
Yeah.
how those funds are used.
In fact, we were discussing today that I did that analysis for the school committee a little while back, where I did the line-to-line, dumped it in Excel, and actually went to every single line projected. So I'll be doing that in the next few weeks, as I was explaining to Paul, because we are closer to the end of the school year. So it's easier, and you're more confident, not only that, there's more money that you can see that maybe we can be freeing up, that'll be left over in the general fund to utilize for the following year, too, as well. But I did already incorporate $200,000 of that already in these figures, so.
We're hoping for a potential increase in our town allocation beyond the 1.5%. We've been talking to the town administrator, so that could increase. There's a possibility of that. And there's a potential increase in grant funding. As I said, there's an SOA grant that we applied for $100,000. A portion of that, plus a portion of our ESSER 3 funds, could be used to offset that deficit. So we're confident we can close that. As I started off, things are continuously evolving, and there are some pretty big variables out there that we hope in the next month we can we can close out. So once we have a better picture on those variables, then this becomes a lot more solidified.
And if you don't mind saying one more thing along those lines is, another thing, just to remind everyone that we had 4 union contracts this year, one of them being a new one. That rarely happens. So for the next 3 years, we'll be able to do it sooner, have the numbers pretty concrete on most of our budget.
But every 3 years, it's going to be.
Well,
I know, but let's not.
We'll talk.
No.
We'll talk about that.
Let's just relish in this wonderful time of,
And, you know,
So trying to prepare a budget where 85% of it, you have no idea what's going to end up,
we'll talk about when we get to
So
the.
we're going to be much better off going forward, right,
Yeah,
exactly.
when we get to the paraprofessional and the
Yes.
ABA job description, we negotiated an ABA and a paraprofessional contract. We started that from scratch. We started it in the summer, and then we finally finalized that in the fall. We did our cafeteria workers, we did our custodians, and we're working with the teachers union. So we had all of those contracts out there. But even for the paraprofessionals, ABA, custodians, and cafeteria workers, that wasn't finalized until October, November of this year. So there's a lot of variables still out there. What are our next steps? We have a school committee meeting on 2 weeks from tonight, Wednesday the 16th, in which I'll give an update. When we meet with Budget Subcommittee next week, we'll talk about whether or not we need to have an additional school committee meeting on March 23rd. We'll be presenting to Finance Committee on March 22nd. We're going to continue that great open dialogue we've had with our town administrator and members on the municipal side to see what we can do for the budget. We have to, by law, have a public hearing on Wednesday, the 6th, where we have to get down to that town appropriation. And then we have our annual town meeting on Monday, May 2nd at 7 o'clock. I was saying 2 o'clock, but that's not a time. At 7 o'clock. So we get a 30,000-foot view of our budget. And again, once those variables become crystallized, we could dive a little bit deeper into this and kind of help massage and smooth out the corners of the budget. Questions on it?
This was a really nicely laid out, so thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right. Next, I know I've talked about it a couple different times, our family and community. Do you have your setup? Thanks. Our family and community partnership. We received a grant through the Department of Education to partner with a school in Maine institute for how we can better improve our dialogue and our partnerships with, between the schools and the families. The one thing that the pandemic taught us is how important that partnership between the school and the home is. So we're really proud of this. So I want to go over the process with you. So the third slide, which talks about SMI methods and district supports. This was really a great process. It wasn't something that was done quickly. We started off with 3 cross-district meetings. We partnered with 3 other school districts, and we met 3 times throughout the fall to kind of look at the process, learn from each other. What are some schools doing? What are we doing that works? What are other districts doing that works in order to start this process? They came in and they virtually held focus groups with 4 different focus groups with parents and caregivers, with students grades 5 through 12, and with teachers. And they were able to have a dialogue with them, and in some instances, there was a survey that was done. And then we as a district had 3 meetings with them, which we were able to reflect on family and school partnerships in the district. We did some reflection work, we did some theme work, and we ended up coming up with a plan. The next few slides, I'm not going to go through them one by one. There's a lot of content on them, but I'll leave them up here for a few seconds for the committee to look at them and anyone who's at home to look at them. And obviously, this will be posted on the website. Here's an example of some of the focus group questions that were asked of family members, of teachers and frontline staff and students. And as you can see, they're pretty open-ended questions that sparked some good dialogue with people who were interviewed. The 3 big questions that they wanted asked are here. This is really what they were trying to get at. You can see, what about partnerships seems to be working well? What did we learn from the pandemic? And what opportunities can we to deepen and build upon that partnership with families? The next slides is that feedback that they received. So again, I'm not going to go through all the content, but I'll leave it up for a few seconds for people to look at. But the first one is, what is working with families? And this is from the perspective of staff. What seems to be working well in those partnerships with families from the staff point of view? Next slide is themes from family and caregivers. So based off of their interviews and their discussions with families and caregivers, what seems to be working well? The next slide was themes from students. I think these are just our 6th through 8th graders when they interviewed them. And lastly, we have themes from staff. So what they did, the School of Maine Institute observations, there's about 11 of them here. What they did is they took all the information from our meetings, from those focus groups, from those surveys, from those interviews, and came up with their observations. And they're pretty spot on. First is there's a bit of a status quo culture. We've always done it that way. It seems to be working. It kind of works. So there's that status quo culture. Spot on. Individual staff have that vision of how family partnerships work inside the classrooms, but we as a district or schools as their own entities don't have that vision as to what that partnership looks like, and they're spot on. We don't. We need to work on that. We don't have a mechanism in place for how can we collect information and data from parents, students, and staff as to how we can increase and better those partnerships. There was a feeling of, is there a sense of urgency in this work? There's a lot of competing priorities, so where does building those partnerships fit in with what we're doing as a district? There was the notion of parent-teacher conferences need to change, and we could be doing them better, and again, spot on. Adults mentioned that as kids go up in grade level, parent involvement decreases. So you see it a lot at the primary and the elementary. By the time you get to junior and senior, you might have a half dozen parents who come. We don't offer professional development as to how we can better those relationships. Teachers, again, could not articulate a clear vision from the district as to what that looks like. Parents felt that we need to better utilize them as a resource inside our schools. Parents felt like they want to be seen more as a partner in it and not as an information and communication lens. We do a great job communicating with parents. We do a great job sharing information. What we need to do a better job is how can we partner with them? And then the student perspective is that they feel like things are working, but it was interesting to hear their feedback. And the last piece was, finally, what are their recommendations and their action plan? So, I don't know if you do number one first or you do number two first, but this was the order they presented it. What's our vision? What do we want to do? What does partnerships mean? What do we want it to look like? What's our vision as a district? What are the visions in each of the schools? How do they align? We need to collect data from families as to how we can better serve families, students, and staff within our school district. Courtney loved number three.
I just, been talking about that for years.
How can we increase how can we get parents more involved in our schools? They're a great resource. How can we invite them into our community? Courtney was kind enough to share that when she was younger, she ran the parent volunteer group.
Well, no, I was a volunteer coordinator in one school district, but I also volunteered when I was an at-home mom for 8 years in the school district. And I love the work of our volunteer coordinator that, I worked under. And one of the programs that I work with, well, I'm very passionate about it.
Yeah, I know.
But it was a wonderful program and it was a holistic approach of in the home, the school, the connection between school and home. And one of the people that I worked with, I still run into this, it's been 25 years, and she still remembers my working with her and her, I actually helped her get her GED, and then someone else helped the family as well, and then there was that connection with the school, and I really loved it. So I've been kind of, sort of advocating for a volunteer coordinator thing and volunteer program, but, okay, I said it.
So you said you got, I gave you the end. And then finally, revamping open houses. So obviously, this isn't something that's done in 2-3 weeks or 2-3 months. This is something we're going to start this year and have it bleed over into next year. But this is our recommendation and a blueprint for how we can continue to build those partnerships. And if you remember when I started the budget presentation, one of those things that we had, at least 5 priority areas, is the community partnerships. And this here gets us our blueprint for how we can better involve families within the school. So excited to start this work. Again, we started back in probably October, November, but now we can roll up our sleeves and start working on it.
What is SMI?
School and Main Institute.
Main,
I was wondering.
M-A-I-N?
M-A-I-N.
Okay.
I was wondering that too.
Is that a Massachusetts organization?
I got the impression they were, but.
I got the impression they were, but the representatives who were part of them were scattered throughout the U.S.
Okay. And then when you so all these questions and the data that they collected was from 4 schools in Massachusetts?
It was from us.
Oh,
All this was from the Douglas Public Schools.
okay.
How did they select the focus groups? Like, I know you're not going to say names, but what size sampling is this, or?
So it's small, it's not a big sample. So what I did is, over 3 or 4 newsletters, I sent out information that said, if anyone, here's what we're doing, if
Yeah.
you'd like to be part of a focus group, please send me your name, and I will forward you the link for it. So I think we might have had 6, 7, 8 parents who
Okay.
did it. For our kids, Josh, I figured how many kids you had.
I only had 2, that's why my data isn't in there, because the rest of them all had they had tests or whatever,
Right.
so they opted not to come, like,
But Bob had about 50 kids.
all at a time.
Yeah.
Bob had 50, 60 kids who did. And then for staff, what we did is principals released staff from a faculty meeting.
Yeah.
I think we had about 6 or 7 staff members from each of the buildings participate in
Okay.
it. So again, it wasn't a huge, massive sample size, but the feedback that we got is pretty spot on with what's
Yeah,
what's
it's
happening
funny
here.
because some of the individual comments, like, I'm a smidge surprised about, but when it goes to recommendations and action plan, like, I don't know, that jives with sort of what I see too. I think that there's like, I don't know what it is supposed to be like at the upper grade, like at the higher grades, but I do feel that there's this very, like, kind, collegial sort of relationship between the schools, between the district and families. Oh, on the brighter side, I'm sure there's some unpleasant relationships too, but in general, I feel like it's that, but it's not the same thing as, I don't know how to say it. I feel like the kids have this deep relationship with the staff. I feel like the kids obviously have a deep relationship with their families, but I feel like the families don't necessarily have a deep relationship with the buildings and with the schools. Even if I come in with my pot of soup for the thing, I feel like, here I am, here's my soup, and I'll tiptoe away. And that could just be me personally, but I do have that sort of sense that if somebody's a regular sub, then they feel like at place. But I do think that there's opportunity to sort of grow that bond with
So I'll-
families also.
Courtney, why don't you share some of the stuff you shared with me that you did? I know you'll love this,
No,
all
no,
right?
I'm just letting,
So-
oh no, I have my
You have
mommy
3
hat on
minutes.
You
right
have
now.
2 minutes to share. Thank you for
I
putting the
say
time.
that often in leadership team meetings, ask them, I've got my mommy hat on now. But anyway.
Some of the stuff you did as volunteer coordinator, and some of the things that parents did to build that partnerships. Can you just talk about 3 or 4 of the things you highlighted with me when we met?
Oh, I don't remember what I highlighted
Wow.
with you. But, and I don't know, because I worked in Uxbridge where we had, Linda Saracen was a volunteer coordinator. And basically, it's almost like a program where you, it's very professional, and, there's a process and everything, but you also are aligning the interests of parents and how they want to, and it's more about utilizing the skills and the knowledge and the passions, I guess is a good word, of the parents
Yeah.
to come and help not only their own child, but all the students in the district. And I think that really is a good bridge
Yeah.
gap. So you're looking for the skill sets and the interest from various parents. And not only that, I think it's very important, especially in this day and age, particularly in this day and age, because we've got so far away from the extended family and the importance of that, the nuclear family, that we're missing so much, that you can bring in elderly people to sit and read and talk about their experiences, and get that generational aspect, the knowledge, the skills, and then you can also get the career aspect from everyone coming in with their careers. I mean, to me, I can't even, this is like such a big thing with me. There's just
No,
so much that you can do. And then I think that would help immensely with what you're talking about,
Right,
Becky.
and I think-
They would feel welcome in part of the school district.
Right,
For
and-
those that want to do it.
Right.
And can do it, I should say,
I think
as
that
well.
casting that net into the community as a whole, and not just to parents and caregivers of students, is really smart too. Like,
Yes.
I remember there was an elderly man who used to come and teach us about poetry. That was his passion. He did it in elementary school, middle school, high school, and he was our biggest cheerleader at all sporting events. He didn't have kids in the district anymore. They had long since graduated, and he came all the time. And it was like, from a young child age to senior in high school, you felt that you mattered to the community, that you were cared for, and you learned a skill. Like, he introduced me to poetry when I was in 2nd grade.
That's fabulous.
There's a lot of opportunity to, I think that maybe some of the hesitation sometimes is like, teachers have so much to do, right? And so many things to get done. It's like, where's the time in the day for their space and their time to be able to open up to these other things? So I think that
That,
can
again,
be
that might allow
challenging.
them some time, though,
Right,
too, to
take a
do
break.
things.
Right, plan, yeah.
Yes.
Collaborate.
Yeah, I mean, to me, there's no downside. And what you just described is a village. And what do they say?
Yeah.
It takes a village to raise a
And-
child,
and
right?
It's even, like,
You know?
Courtney did some pretty, like, big-sized projects, but even if you did things where allowing parents to come in on a child's birthday to eat lunch with them, especially the primary and the
Yeah.
elementary school, and at that opportunity, after that, having the parent go to the classroom and read a story
Yeah.
inside the classroom. You're building partnerships, and from there, a parent and a teacher are having a more organic conversation
Right.
to say, oh my gosh, I didn't know you could, or this is great, or do you mind if I? And that's how you build, those bridges. Mystery reading is a great way to
Yeah.
have parents come inside classrooms. Again, COVID kind of stopped that. Our science teachers, if you go down to our elementary schools, they're doing some pretty cool hands-on stuff with scientists. I'm sure there are parents out there who'd love to come in and help partner with a teacher to do that. When you look at some of these science experiments, they're multi-part, they're multifaceted. It'd be great for a teacher to have an extra set of hands in there with a parent volunteer to work on it. Again, there are so many things that can come from it.
Yeah.
Both very, very small to building. We have the senior center down at the bottom of the hill. It'd be great to be able to start building those partnerships, having them come up and read to kids, having them come up and do
Yeah.
some stuff. I'm sure we have veterans that would love to come in as history classes are talking about. So, again, we could go on and on.
Yeah.
I think we hit our 3-minute limit.
Or a scientist coming, you talk about science class, for any child at any age, they're working on something in a very, closed area in a classroom, talking about science. They can't really relate that to anything. If you have a scientist come from somewhere and come in and talk about their job at the appropriate age and relate what they're doing to what they're doing, you might spark a lifelong interest in becoming a scientist. Okay, I'll
So
stop.
how able are we right now to accommodate somebody who is interested in doing that stuff? Or say, hey, I've got something I'd love to share, or I'd love to come read to the class. How
So,
are we able to accommodate that now?
So now, yeah, so what we need to start off with is we need to create that vision. We need to do those surveys for how parents want to partner with us. Because we have our ideas, but we also need to ask staff and families how they want to partner.
Because grandparents are part of it,
Grandparents
too,
are part
right?
of it too.
Yeah.
So my goal for this year, hopefully between now and the end of June, is to get those surveys out, to get that information from families, from kids, from staff members, and create that vision as to what is the vision of the Douglas Public Schools for how we're going to create those partnerships. Then over the summer and next year, we can look at how we begin to implement that vision. I know that Cindy has already reached out to people for, I think, the 30th and the 31st of March to come in and be a guest reader. We can start expanding on that. Again, we just went mask optional a couple of days ago, so we need to build that momentum, but I would love to start having, especially at the younger levels, parents and families coming in and partnering with us. I've seen in some other things, doing a real intergenerational project between juniors and seniors at high school and partnering with someone from the senior center and working collaboratively on a project and researching it and working on it together, then presenting it as kind of like a capstone project. Well, that's a great thing that you can see done. Again, we've hit our 3-minute limit, but we can go on and on and on for how to do it. But I want to start this year with getting that survey information and creating a vision.
Okay.
And I think that's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the school committee and subcommittee reports, we have the consent agenda to review the January 19th meeting minutes.
These the ones that we tabled,
Yeah, this is what we tabled.
Yeah, I already looked at this.
and you're good?
Yeah.
Be looking for a motion?
A motion to approve the school committee meeting minutes for January 19th, 2022.
Motion made by Lisa, I need a second.
Second.
Second by Monique, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm going to have to abstain because I wasn't there,
And Becky abstained.
although I did watch it.
On to the February 2nd meeting minutes. If everybody's looked at them, be looking for a motion.
Motion to approve the school committee meeting minutes of February 2nd, 2022.
Motion made by Lisa, I need a second, please.
Second.
Second by Becky. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. On to the February 23rd meeting minutes.
I did watch these on Zoom, so I don't think I have to abstain.
Right. Everybody had a time to look at it? Anything, be looking for a motion?
I would say it's on Zoom.
Was it?
It's called to order. It doesn't say there was a Zoom meeting. We could amend it.
I'm going to say it was Zoom.
The meeting is being broadcast live on YouTube and
YouTube.
recorded for future rebroadcasting.
So I'll just add Zoom.
Yeah, I would add Zoom.
That's on the beginning. Do you want to vote it as amended by adding it was a Zoom meeting?
I'll make a motion to approve the school committee meeting minutes for February 23rd, 2022 as amended.
Motion made by Lisa,
Second.
second by Becky. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next one is the EFDA charge and collection of payment and of school meals policy, first reading.
Yes, we're bringing to you this evening the first reading on an update to a policy that came to be needing to be updated because an update to the law. Just a little bit of background. Due to unpaid school lunches not being allowed pursuant to USDA regulations, districts use various options to attempt to collect. And, you know, it's changed over the years and kind of morphed a little bit. One of them was offering a sun butter sandwich rather than the regular meal and just different things. Just so you know, notices are sent home regularly, but if that did not work, other options for lunch were utilized over the years. Several years ago, regulations required that districts were not allowed to have unpaid balances. And I don't know if you remember, but probably about 5 years ago, we had a huge amount, it was like $21,000 from years worth, like maybe even decades, that we basically had to reclass school lunch expenditures from the school lunch revolving fund account, which is made up of the fees and state and federal reimbursement and such, into the general fund to bring it down to whole. Since that time, it's varied to around $500, $800 that's been outstanding, and we've been doing the same thing. So recently, they had this law that passed on the anti-lunch shaming law under Chapter 62 of the Acts of 2021, and it did contain a number of provisions that prohibit school districts from doing certain things due to outstanding on lunch debt. So we basically just updated our current policy, which we've had for a number of years, which we've attached here, to be in line with the new law. So instead of just giving you a clean one, I wanted to give you, for the first reading in particular, to see what was crossed out. And what other things? Okay. So when I did, as far as on page, let's see, 1, 2, on the third page, about midway, I do say that all charges not paid before the end of the school year must be dealt with through other means, such as reclassifying expenditures to the general fund budget, or appropriate donation account, or other means pursuant to new USDA regulations. Typically, it is a general fund. There are, say if we received a donation, I know that some, it's been on the news actually several times, in some towns, someone will give a donation and say this can be used to pay off outstanding debts, things of that nature. But it still must be dealt with, and you cannot do anything like give a sun butter sandwich. They still have to get their regular lunch, because in essence, really what it comes down to is, it's not the child's fault. Okay, and really they want to put the burden on the parents or but remove any ramifications for a child in school in trying to get their lunch. This is not, this only applies to the lunch and the breakfast, which is reimbursable. It does not apply to the a la carte items. Because those are bought separately, that has nothing to do with school lunch.
Or a second
So,
lunch.
Right, right.
Second.
Thank you, yes. So basically, we're just updating it to cross off any of those things that you just cannot have pursuing to that new law. So I didn't know if anybody had any other questions? No?
Next item is the Jlccb life-threatening allergy policy statement, our first reading.
Sure. So as part of our wellness committee, we started looking at some of our wellness policies and some of our allergy policies. So first one we're looking at is a life-threatening allergy policy statement. This was last worked on in May of 2006. So lots happened in schools in May of 2006. So this is a complete rewrite of what we had. So obviously, we know that we recognize that students with life-threatening allergies require accommodations to be safe and to be able to access the curriculum inside of schools. We're going to make sure that we continue to be in compliance with state and federal mandates and guidelines that have been established by DECA. And they put out a document entitled Managing Life-Threatening Food Allergies in Schools, which is a guide that our nurses use as to how we can work with students who have life-threatening allergies. The second statement speaks a little bit as to the how and what we do here as a district. So establishes guidelines for building-based plans, training for personnel, establishing individual care plans. So this is just a statement of how we're going to address and what we use as a guideline for life-threatening allergies. And when you looked at the old policy, it was dated, it had some language in there that was old, and again, it was last looked at in 2006, so this is a refresh of the policy to make sure it's just up to date and current.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. Moving on to the Deca overnight field trip in Boston, Mass.
The Deca Club, which is a business and entrepreneurship club, they have some students who qualified for the state meet, which is going to occur in Boston March 10 to 11. And so their plan is to spend the night in Boston, participate in the whole spectrum of activities. There are 5 students who are going to go, along with Mr. Hillman as their chaperone. The trip itself is going to be paid for by the students through fundraising and then by student individual payment for whatever they weren't able to raise towards their fees. Then we'll need a sub for Mr. Hillman for 2 days, but that sub for Mr. Hillman is the only expense to the actual district. It's a great opportunity for those kids. We've had a lot of success with Deca, and we'd really like to be able to get our kids involved in this trip, with your permission.
Anyone have any questions?
I just want to kind of give them a shout out. It hasn't really been a club for very long, right? And I feel like
2 years.
Right, and then the first year they did really well at this convention. I
Yeah.
think.
Last year, they actually qualified for nationals, and they
Last year,
couldn't
too.
participate because
Look
of,
at
yeah.
Yeah, no, it's awesome.
Kids jumped on this. It's been great.
This is a success, so it's nice to hear that. So I'd be looking for a motion.
Move to approve the overnight field trip to the Deca State Career Development Conference at the Heinz Convention Center in Boston on March 10th through March 12th, 2022.
Motion made by Lisa, looking for a second.
Second.
Second by Becky. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
Moving on to job descriptions for our paraprofessionals and our ABA therapists.
So as I mentioned earlier, the paraprofessionals and ABAs formed a union last year. We met with them over the summer and in the fall to negotiate a contract, and part of that negotiation was the creation of a job description, both for the paras and for the ABAs. Big thank you to Courtney, who worked to put this document together. She culled from...
Yeah, she did, yeah, and Tara did most of the, yeah.
She
detail,
culled from a lot of different resources to put this together. I took a look at it. Tara Soboleski took a look at it, and this is what we came up with. From there, what we did is we presented it to the DESPA, the paraprofessionals and the ABAs. They took a look at it. They gave their input and feedback on it. We tweaked it a little bit. We sent it back to them, and they said, we're happy with it, it looks great. We looked at it, we said, we're happy with it, it looks great. We said our next step is to go to school committee and get it approved. So this is, a lot of work on Courtney's front end to get a lot of the verbiage here. Tara and I looked at it to tweak it, and again, the DESPA, our paras and our ABAs looked at it, gave their input and their suggestions and their tweaks to it, and what you're looking at is the final product of that collaborative project.
And to their credit, if you don't mind my saying, they only had one tiny little thing that they, as far as the paras and ABAs, which was a good input, and so it's been a great experience with regard to that, too.
It means that we were spot on in creating the
Yeah.
job description
So,
as well, which is
well,
good, too.
yeah.
Any questions on the 2 job descriptions? I'd be looking for a motion.
There is not an agenda item, so it's just move to accept job
We just need to
descriptions.
accept it.
Yep, the paraprofessional in the Applied Behavior Analyst, ABA, job descriptions as presented.
So
What Courtney said, so we have to vote on it.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Lisa, second by Becky. All those in favor?
Aye.
Next item on the agenda is the disposal of the primary school desks and cabinets that have no value.
Yes, Mrs. Socia at the primary school did have to clean out one of her rooms, which was a good thing, the storage room, to make room for a music classroom. So she had 4 teacher desks and 2 metal cabinets, both from the 1970s, that were removed from this room. They've actually been out by the dumpster since the summertime. But, it's been a little bit busy, so we finally said, let's get this taken care of and get them actually disposed of. So they're dented, rusted, not in good condition, and they've been outside since the summertime, so there's really no financial impact. Our disposal company will come and pick them up, because they're right next to the dumpster, so.
So there's no extra cost to that? Being like the large items, there's no extra cost of disposal?
Oh, there might be, it's not gonna be much at all, I mean, financial impact-wise, we have to get rid of them, so, yeah.
Any questions? Be looking for a motion?
Move to approve the disposal of 4 teacher desks and 2 metal cabinets that are damaged and of no value.
Second.
Motion made by Lisa, second by Becky. All those in favor?
Aye.
Next item is the stipend for nurses.
Right. So back in the fall, the school committee graciously approved a stipend for $2,000 for each of our nurses. I think I came to you end of September, beginning of October, to recognize the work that they've been doing outside of the school day on weekends. We were in a very unique situation last year and in the fall when a parent would call, a parent would email, we needed them to respond. So we wanted to recognize the work that they were doing on nights and weekends, and the school committee graciously approved a $2,000 stipend. I don't think any of us saw Omicron and the impact of Omicron over the months of December and January. Their workload spiked tremendously during that time frame for what they had to do in order to be able to meet the needs of kids, make sure we were safe in schools. So consistent with what area school districts have done is, for that time frame, they offered an additional stipend to nurses for the time that they dealt with in December and January with the spike. So what we're looking for is a one-time stipend to recognize the work that happened during those 2 months. This would come from an ESSER 3 grant, and what we're looking for is $1,500 for the 3 nurses who are in the district for the full 2 months, $1,000 for one of the nurses who was here for 6 of the 8 weeks, and then $500 for one of the nurses who was here for 2 of the 8 weeks. And again, I reached out to area schools, and a lot of schools during the spike were doing additional things for their nurses, recognizing that we saw our numbers go from 4, 5, 6 kids to double, triple that, in addition to that, all the contact tracing that was happening as a result of it. So this is just in recognition of that time. So happy to answer questions.
Would they receive the stipends in like the next payroll cycle?
No, it'd be the end of the year.
Why is it at the end
Yeah.
of the year? Why does it work
Because
that way?
at the end of the, because it's, well, the $2,000 was for the whole, I'd have to give some thought to that, but the $2,000 one is for the whole year.
Yeah. This stipend here.
Maybe we could do it, because it was for a time frame. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and we could, because we actually have to change the motion here.
Okay.
That's provided down here, because I actually had updated it to state the names, because Jean had asked that to be stated. So we need to update that to be very, very clear.
Could just say a one-time stipend?
Yeah, I had that in there, too. Yes, mm-hmm. Okay. All righty, let's see, Kathy.
Any other questions that maybe Courtney can read the updated motion?
Sorry, just so to clarify further, for the $2,000 one, that was like for the work they had done and projecting what they were going to do out for the
So
remainder
the
of the year?
$2,000 was for the entire school year, given the fact that a parent might email them, say, my kid's symptomatic, what do I do?
Yeah.
My kid's symptomatic,
Right.
what do I do?
Right.
A staff member calls them up and says, I have the sniffles, how many days am I out? A parent email,
Yeah.
so that's for that, all that stuff they're doing outside the school day.
Yeah, no, that makes
For
sense.
the entire year.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me. I just thought when we approved it, it was sort of the way that, I know that this is specifically to Omicron.
Yeah.
But at that time, I had thought it was more like the work they had done to that point. Because, I mean, obviously, like, COVID was a problem in the previous school year, too. So I thought it was more like a one-time, you know, like the way an honorary, like a one-time, here it is, like an honorarium or something, but I get it.
Cody, do you want to
So
read it?
I'm going to actually, if you don't mind, I'm going to have to actually read it and move, and then you can second, because I want it to be very specific. So I'm just trying to remember, okay. So move to approve the following stipends for nurses. Okay, I'm just, hold on a minute, okay. Okay. Yeah, that's the way I'll do it, okay. Move to approve the following stipends for nurses. The first one will be the amount of $1,500 for nurses who worked here for the full 2 months. And the $1,500 will be for Melanie Brundage and Melanie Gauscher.
And
1,000.
Jen Walker.
No, that's just 1,000.
No,
Okay. No, do I have that wrong?
yeah, the 1,500's for Mel, and Jen.
That's what I have. That's what I just said.
Mel, and Jen Walker. It's 3 people for the 1,500.
Okay, because it's 5. I'm sorry, I
It's
forgot
5,
about the
yep.
other. I'm sorry. Yeah, I was thinking, right. Okay, sorry. Okay, Jennifer Walker, okay. And then this one, right. I'm sorry, I forgot about Heather, right. I'm sorry, yeah, because she's already, yeah. Okay, hopefully I can get this, okay? All right, we will start again. Okay, move to approve the following stipends for nurses for their extra work associated with COVID as a result of the Omicron spike. $15,
1,500.
$1,500, sorry, for Melanie Brundage, Jennifer Walker, and Melanie Gauscher, who worked here for the full 2 months. $1,000 for Heather Tarantino, who worked in December and part of January, and $500 for Kathy Campbell, who worked part of December. And this is a one-time payment.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Becky, second by Monique. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Next, we're moving over to the School Business and Operations Manager Report with transfers and reclassifications.
I don't have any this evening. I'll be getting caught up on those after we finish the budget and everything else. But I just want to let you know that I hope to finalize, hoping to finalize by the end of this week, the invitation for bids, the IFB for the bus transportation. And just to remind you that it was approved at town meeting that I can issue the IFB for the 3 years, which is always allowed by Master Law, 3 years, but also with an additional, at our discretion, additional 2 years. So it would be from FY '23, for '23, '24, '25, and then '26 and '27, but it's always at our discretion, depending on whether it makes sense financially for the district, 100% our discretion. So I'll be sending that out, and I will let you know what happens, and keep your fingers crossed. Great. So hopefully it won't be too bad. Hopefully we'll get a bid. Yeah.
That's key.
And that's it.
Well, thank you, Courtney. Any topics not anticipated for this evening? I know we need to move into executive session to discuss the strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation of an open meeting that may be detrimental to the effective bargaining and litigation process of a government body, and to conduct collective bargaining to review the contract language and propose revision strategies for a successful completion of an agreement between the Douglas School Committee and the Douglas Teachers Association, teacher's contract, and to discuss, I don't think we're doing that this
We are.
evening. to discuss the deployment of the security personnel or devices. We're going to do that too as well. We will not come back into public session for the school committee. We will adjourn from there.
And we just want to note the time.
And we need to make a motion,
We need to do roll call.
Roll call vote.
roll call vote, sorry, roll call vote to go into executive session. Is that
At
8:19.
8:19.
8:19?
Becky Charniak, aye.
Lisa Brown, aye.
Monique Salvas, aye.
Heather Moore and I. Thank you all. Our next school committee meeting is on